You know how Rome has the Colosseum, Paris the Eiffel Tower, and London has Big Ben? Well, Brussels has a peeing baby. Hi there, my name is Pietro, I'm 25 years old, and exactly 6 months ago I decided to leave Italy and move to Belgium. In this video, I want to talk about the reasons behind this decision and tell you a little bit about what's it like to live as an expat in Brussels. But before anyone gets mad at me, yes, I know, Mannequin Pis is not the biggest tourist attraction of Brussels. And when it comes to huge structures, I think this one behind me is my favorite. It's called the Palais de Justice, or the Palace of Justice, and apparently if you ask ChatGPT, it was one of the biggest ever constructions in the world in the 19th century. But people mostly know it as the building that's in constant construction. But I think that's enough architecture for today. As I was saying, I moved to Brussels a little over 6 months ago, so at the beginning of February 2024, and I've been trying to find the time to make a video, and I've always been postponing it, but I feel like the move has been hectic, not as much as it could have been, honestly, by talking to other people. It was hectic because I've never lived abroad by myself before. I lived abroad with my family. When I was a little kid, we moved to the US from Italy for a while. This is completely different. Now I'm an adult, I need to do everything by myself, provide for myself, all the bureaucracy, health insurance. Been a bit of a rude awakening, but going off okay, I think. Honestly, just the first few weeks were insanely stressful because the day before I packed my bags and took a flight and moved to Brussels, I was taking my last exam of my master's degree, and there was so much writing on it, and at the same time I was really not confident in my performance because it was the subject I had struggled with the most in my 5 years at university. And there was so much on the line because if I hadn't passed that exam, I would have had to move back to Italy, pay another year of tuition, and give up the job that I was hired to do here in Belgium, which was practically my dream job, and I was so lucky to get it, and I would have been really worried I wouldn't have had a second chance to find as an amazing position as that. But luckily, everything turned out well. We passed that exam, and I haven't looked back since. So yeah, as you might have guessed, one of the reasons I moved to Brussels was, of course, my job. I was lucky enough to be awarded a PhD researcher position at the University of Antwerp, where I'm currently researching asset poverty and wealth inequality. And honestly, I feel super lucky because I have the privilege of having the time and resources to try and figure out the answers to some of the questions I care about the most. It's been really nice so far, a little bit frustrating, a little bit isolating, but I think that's just the nature of research and a PhD. But I really enjoyed it, and even though I'm very early days into this new thing, I'm trying to make sure that my research also has a purpose, that it has maybe some policy implications, because I really want to spend this time to figure out answers to problems and possibly how to implement some solutions and make the world a better place. Very idealistic, but that's me, Pietro. Hi, nice to meet you. Also Belgian beer weekend, because of course it is. But I feel like any weekend is Belgian beer weekend. But yeah, if the job was the first reason to move to Brussels, the second reason, but let's say at the same level, was definitely my girlfriend. She had already been here for 6 months because she finished university before me. And we had by then been doing long distance for almost 5 years. And so we kind of promised each other that when we were both done with university, we would find a place that would make sense both geographically and also for our careers. We're both kind of interested in politics and economics, so Brussels is kind of the perfect spot for that. So in addition to moving to a new country, there was also the added dynamic of living together with her for the first time. And it's really nice to not have to travel once a month across the continent to see each other. But let's just say it all worked out in the end. I passed the exam, so I didn't have to quit my job before even starting it. My girlfriend and I found a tiny but nice apartment in a really good area, so that's good. And honestly, it hasn't been that drastic of a move as I thought it was gonna be. I think the only thing I haven't gotten used to is how expensive a cappuccino can be here. Honestly, like this is not that bad because it's like 4 euros for a croissant and a cappuccino. But if you were just to get the cappuccino by itself, I think it would cost like over 3 euros, where I'm used to in Italy it being €1.50. Honestly, it feels dumb to say, but one of the things that took the most effort to adapt to after my move was the different coffee culture. I was used to, in Italy, going to the bar and getting 2 or 3 espressos a day. I know, it's a lot, but it was also the period of my final exam, so believe me, I needed it. But if I was to do that here in Belgium, it wouldn't cost me €3, it would be much closer to 10. That's definitely not an expense I'd be willing to or able to pay on a daily basis. So I've had to cut out the daily coffee run out of my routine, and I'm just either making coffee at home or in the office where it's free. But the third and final reason I moved to Brussels was also because I'm really passionate about European politics, as you can see from here. When I was a freshman in university in Milan, I co-founded this organization that's called EU&U, which practically has the goal to close the gap between citizens and institutions at the EU level. At the time, I was very worried about the consequences of Brexit. I thought that it could happen again, that another country would leave the EU, and it wouldn't really be because the EU institutions don't do anything for their citizens, because since I've been here especially, I've seen how much work they do. But the main problem for me was that the EU institutions couldn't communicate effectively with citizens, or the people that were supposed to benefit from all these programs didn't really recognize it was the EU that was helping them. So that's why we started that project. And since then, it's grown quite a bit. It's been over 5 years now. There has been 2 European Parliament elections in between, the 2019 ones and then the ones here in June of 2024. And over time, a lot of the people, of course, there's like a bias of interest, have moved here to Brussels. And it was super useful to already have a community when I moved to Brussels of friends that had all the tips I needed, knew how to handle the bureaucracy, taxes, knew all the cool spots to hang out in. It really diminished the time that I felt a tourist and accelerated the time to becoming, I feel like an expat. I wouldn't say a local. I'm definitely not a local. I need to work on my French. So I don't want this video to get too long because it was just supposed to be an intro to get to know each other. But I have just one more thing to talk about, which is what are my goals for the future? The goal here mainly is to document my life because it has been going really, really fast. These 6 months have really flown by and I can't believe it. And I think that documenting my life through these kinds of videos is exactly the way to do it. So yeah, I want to document the second half of my 20s and maybe look back on it in 20 years from now and just see like, oh look, he was so anxious. He really didn't know what he was going to do, but it all worked out in the end, just like it worked out when I first moved to Brussels. I mean, that would be ideal, but even if it doesn't work out, it's an adventure and it's cool to see where it goes. I'm quite positive. Everything is looking good, so there's nothing I have to worry about. And hopefully it's also going to connect me with a community of people that have similar interests or are going through the same kind of thing in their life. Whatever happens next, I hope you click on that follow button and stick along for the ride. Ciao.